Hello and welcome everybody. Paul says, Michael looks short, need a booster seat.
I don't know. Maybe my chair will go up. No, now it went down. Uh-oh. How's that? Is that better?
I don't know. There's a 30-second delay.
All right. Well, have him tell me in 30 seconds what he thinks.
Right. Okay. Let's get started. Okay.
All right. Here, I'll angle my camera down a little bit. Then maybe
I think it's just that I'm so tall, even though I'm only 5'2" and you're 6 foot, Michael. So I don't know how that happened, but you know.
Okay.
So welcome everybody to Spiritual Conversations on the Couch with Allie O'Shea. Mikeal Luman is here with us today. Welcome, Michael.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Of course. For those of you who are new to my page, you will probably never have met the elusive Mikeal Luman before. However, Mikeal Luman and myself have been very good friends for about 2 years, although he did disappear off the planet for a little while. And we have done lots of work together. And I'm here to tell you all about and introduce you to the work that Michael does and the difference that he makes in this wonderful universe. So Helen James said you're still too low, Michael.
Helen, all right, here. How's that? That's a little bit better, but my floor is dirty, so I can't angle the camera too far down.
Too funny. Okay, we're going to get over the lowness and the highness.
All right.
Michael. So Mikeal Luman is a healer. But I want to go back. We don't want to stay too far back because, Michael, you have a little bit of a colorful past, shall we call it?
Yes, you could say that.
A little bit of a colorful past, all the colors of the rainbow. But you know what? No matter what the colors of the past are, it doesn't matter. It adds up to the human that makes us today, right?
That is true.
Okay.
Without all my past experiences, I wouldn't have been put in a position to help others.
Exactly. When we go through contrast, it helps us to see what it is that we're here to do and how we can help other people.
Yes, I would agree.
Okay. So before we get really into it, I just want to let people know who don't already know, at the very end of this chat, with Michael and myself, we are going to open up this Zoom. I'm going to put the Zoom link in the comments, and Michael is going to demonstrate healings on people. So if anybody needs healing, if you or any of your friends need healing, please share this video out and come on with us. And Michael's going to work his magic. So please stick around for that for a start. Secondly, Michael. Let's go back to beyond 2000. Let's just go back to your very early childhood years. You were born in Oregon, is that right?
Well, I was born in Provo, Utah, but moved back to Oregon when I was 1.
Okay, when you were 1 with your parents. And you had a really happy childhood and upbringing, is that correct?
I did. Yes, it was great.
Yeah. So later on in your sort of teenage years, you became a fanatic with sports and athletic things like basketball. Isn't that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, so I played soccer, basketball, and track. I also played summer baseball, but I mean, pretty much any sports.
Wow. Okay.
But I really probably excelled the most at track, or had the best opportunity to do something with track.
Okay, and is track running?
Yes, track is running.
Okay,
well, I mean, there's throwing events too, but I did running events.
Okay, all right. Yeah. And so, at some stage, you encountered a really bad injury, didn't you, during your sports days?
Yeah. So, I mean, the injury wasn't as bad as my perception of the injury. So, my junior year in high school, I broke my kneecap playing basketball. Mm-hmm. And in one of those, moments that we have, I felt as if my life was over.
Yeah.
for me, all I wanted to do was know how long it was going to be before I could play sports again. And at the time, I had to have surgery. I had to have screws put in the kneecap. And the doctor said it's going to be 6 months before I could run. And, being 16, 6 months seemed like the rest of my life. So everything I thought I wanted to do, all of a sudden didn't seem like it was gonna happen.
Yeah.
And so my parents just happened to be out of town that weekend. I was in a full leg cast. I was waiting to have surgery the next Monday. My friends came over, and up to that point, I'd said no to drinking. And in a moment of weakness and feeling as if, I was out of options, which is kind of interesting because later I felt that same thing. I said yes to drinking. But when I started, I couldn't stop. And even though my knee got better, I was playing basketball again, I think 8 weeks later. Mentally, I never recovered.
Right. Yeah.
And
that must have been difficult.
Yeah. And then I couldn't stop.
Drinking.
Right.
Yeah. Do you not think, though, that might have just been like a teenage thing? Because I think in teenage years, with the added depression, I don't mean to downplay what you were going through, but I think in teenage years, everybody experiments with drink and other things, and, it can get out of control. Do you feel that yours was really, really excessive in that regard?
Well, I think so. Looking back, I've always been highly empathic. Up to that point, I was really in it. Like, I felt everything. I think that alcohol was a way for me to kind of dampen the sound.
Sure. Yeah.
And then, I got something from it. The thing is that I wasn't able to stop. And so even though I was able to run again, I never ran as fast as I did in the 800 my sophomore year, even though my 400 time was like 3 seconds faster. Like, mentally, I wasn't able to continue. Right. I all of a sudden was afraid what people thought if I lost. And so instead of running to win, I ran not to lose. And you can't run not to lose.
Yeah. So in other words, you were very, very competitive.
Yes.
Yeah. And so what happened after that? You became involved in drugs?
Well, so, eventually alcohol wasn't enough. Mm-hmm. My high school athletic career didn't end the way that I wanted it to. I really didn't have a ton of options for college, even though previously I had a ton of options for college. I ended up going to Portland State, moved in with some guys on the soccer team, continued drinking, started, using drugs, started going to the clubs, and eventually it led to using ecstasy and acid and selling ecstasy and acid, and then eventually to meth.
Right. And in 2000, you got busted by the police, right?
Well, I got busted by the police numerous times. In 2000 was when I finally said I had enough.
Yeah.
And so after, 10 years of addiction to drugs and alcohol, I was in a position to where I could have been in prison for 10 years or more. Mm-hmm. Right?
That didn't happen though, right? It was 2 years.
It ended up being 2 years because I got into a boot camp program. So I reduced my sentence from 54 months to just under 24 months.
Okay. Can you just tell us a little bit about what that boot camp was about?
Well, yeah. And so even though things got really bad, I was kidnapped for 6 months. I was shot at. A number of things happened in that time, but I always had a understanding that it wasn't going to last forever. So I'd been on the run from the police for 3 years.
Wow.
And the moment I got arrested the last time, I had like a 30-second moment of clarity where I knew that was the last time. Right? But it really took me after that about 3 to 6 months to finally get my head wrapped around what had happened and then what was going to happen moving forward.
Sure. So you went to prison for a couple of years. You came out
Yes.
and you had decided that was going to be the last time.
Yeah.
However, you ended up needing a whole load of medical things doing for you. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, I'd already had
A
I
bunch.
think at that point I already had 3 knee surgeries.
Yeah.
Right now I've had 7 right knee surgeries and 2 left knee surgeries. But it's interesting because at the time I thought that that was going to be my life calling, is helping people with addiction.
Yes.
I mean, in 2007, I wrote a book about my addiction. I started a nonprofit. I went on a 12,000-mile bicycle tour around the United States promoting my book and my nonprofit.
And
I
your
was
book is
speaking.
called 800 meters, right?
It's called 800 meters, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was speaking at all the local high schools. But, you know, it never really was the end of, where things were headed, because I still had some things that I hadn't worked through yet. And so after my 12,000-mile bicycle tour, things didn't necessarily go the way that I had planned. I ended up breaking 3 ribs about 6 months later, kind of went through a little bit of a depression, pulled myself out of that in 2011, had a couple more knee surgeries, started, training again. I was going to do some things, got hit on my bike by a car, and kind of went back into that same, cycle of depression.
Yeah.
So in 2015, after 7 right knee surgeries, 2 left knee surgeries, 2 broken ankles, a torn quad, 2 torn hamstrings, I had just had 1 back surgery, only to find myself 3 weeks later herniating the same disc, only to find out, oh, you have torn labrums in both hips and bilateral impingements. So like, this was the moment that everything led me to.
Yeah. Light bulb moment almost.
Yeah. Another light bulb moment.
Another one. So you originally thought that you were here to help with teenagers and the like, with not just teenagers and the like. I mean, I know that you coached somebody else who you were in prison with. You know, and it doesn't mean to say that that wasn't also your calling. You helped a lot of people back then for what happened around that period of time, and then you've moved forward and now you're helping other people in a different way. So it's not that that wasn't your calling or that this is your calling. I think it's all kind of amalgamated into one.
Yeah, it's kind of all the same thing.
Yeah. So let's explain then what happened to you when you let go of everything. You released the resistance and you let go of all of that pain in your body.
Okay. So let me, I'll lead up to it just a little bit.
Sure.
But, so in about 2012, right after my 6th knee surgery, I started to think, there has to be a little bit something else going on here besides just sports, right? Everybody would say that it was sports, right? But I didn't understand like being empathic, or I didn't understand like taking on people's stuff or any of that. I just knew what I was experiencing physically.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, it started to not make sense, right? So I did at that time start to get a little bit into energy, but more like physical energies, like programming something with a machine that's a certain vibration, right? But I wasn't really ever in a position to accept it for myself, right? Like the hardest thing about, let's say, subtle energy or letting things go or having a greater experience is we know everything that we have done, right? So I knew all my past. And it was hard for me to let go all of my past in order to have a greater experience, because I still felt like I wasn't worthy of a greater experience. So in 2015, in that moment where everything looked as if I was out of options, I went on a trip out of town. And I was going through a divorce at the time, right? So really, in a moment of feeling as if I was out of options, I put all my pain into a rock and I threw my rock in the river. And
you need to back up a little bit, because I've always questioned you about this. Explain that a little bit more to people about putting your pain into a rock.
well, I needed a way to let go of the pain without it going into anybody else.
Yeah.
Right. So if I spent 40 years taking on everybody's stuff, I didn't want to give everybody's stuff back because it became part of who I was. I felt as if my life wasn't going the way that I wanted it to. So I might as well take everybody else's stuff. So at least I can say, well, look what I've done. I've taken everybody else's pain. So I had become, let's say, a mini savior, thinking that I was doing good.
Yeah.
Right. I already at that time had enough understanding that, let's say, I could program a rock with, let's say, 7.8 hertz. I knew that rocks could accept energy. I knew that other things could accept energy. So the rock just allowed me to let it go without thinking it would go into somebody else. But the thing is one moment I had all those things.
Yeah.
The next moment I didn't.
Yeah.
But what happened in between those two moments was a lot. Yeah. Right? Because in between those two moments, I recognized everything that had happened. Right? I saw that the pain didn't necessarily go into the rock. Right? I saw that, oh, I just let go of the pain. But I had a physical experience in that moment. But right after the physical experience, I had a change of heart. So the change of heart is what allowed it to be permanent.
What do you mean you had a change of heart?
So if the moment before I looked back, I saw everything that I wanted to change. Like, I wish I would have been able to set the state record in 800 in high school. I wish I wouldn't have been addicted to drugs. I wish I would have never gone to prison. I wish I would have gone to college and played sports. I wish I would have gone to the Olympics. All those things that I wished that I had done, all of a sudden changed. Because in the next moment, none of those things mattered anymore. The only thing that mattered was that experience that I just had, which allowed me then moving forward to be the person that I wanted to be.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So I always wanted to help people. Right before that moment, me helping people was taking their stuff.
Okay.
Right. The next moment, I no longer wanted to take people's stuff. In the next moment, I just wanted to be an example of what's possible.
Perfect.
Right. So through that experience, not only did I heal physically, but everything healed. Right. So I, in that moment, got a second chance to be who I really wanted to be.
Yeah.
Regardless of the physical stuff, regardless of the emotional stuff or the mental stuff or the spiritual stuff or whatever that stuff is. Right. And the change was drastic enough that I knew that it had changed. Right. Because one moment I couldn't stand upright. The next moment I was walking perfect. Right. One moment my pain level was a 10. The next moment I didn't have pain.
Yeah.
Right. So after that experience, I got back in the car. I drove 2.5 hours back to Portland and then paddleboarded across the Columbia River. The day before, I tried to take my kids paddleboarding and I couldn't even stand up on a paddleboard. Right. So I had two drastic experiences that neither of them could make sense together. So sure. I had to either accept that my back hadn't healed and was what it was the day before, or that it had healed and it was in that next moment.
Right.
Right. I chose to have a greater experience and to let all of that go.
Awesome sauce.
Right? Yeah. And I should point out too that in that moment is when I found that I could then be an example for other people's healing, because that's really what makes it permanent, is then to move forward being different.
Yeah. And so I think for you as well, the work that you do with people with your focused intention helps you to remember what you went through and to know and understand that it really happened. And you've often said that in the past, that without that, you might, not realize it happened, or whatever, might not believe it happened.
Yes. Without having everyone else's experiences as well, I probably would have forgotten by now what had happened.
Yeah.
Because looking back, things look so much different now than they did in that moment.
Yeah.
Right? Because not only will I question it, but other people will question it, because people question it all the time, right? People will say, well, how did you have an 8.5 millimeter protrusion in L4, L5 one moment and then not have it the next moment?
Yeah.
Right? Because everyone's perception is those two things aren't possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? But not only did I experience it, I've had hundreds of other people that have experienced the same thing. So when I have somebody, let's say, that can't walk up and down the stairs one moment, and the next moment they're walking up and down the stairs, that just reinforces that it is possible.
Yeah. And so it's like, isn't it Joe Dispenza who went through something similar?
Yeah.
For anybody who's ever followed sort of Joe Dispenza's work, didn't he get hit by a truck on his bike or something?
Yeah, he was on a bicycle doing a race, and he got hit from behind on his bicycle. Now, the only difference is his experience took him time.
Yeah.
Right? Like it took him 6 months to get himself into a position to where he was able to let everything go. When people help other people, we can let things go a lot quicker because the example is always present. So that's why I don't necessarily consider myself as much a healer as an example of what's possible. I'm using my example to help people to let it go quicker.
The thing is with being called a healer as well, because I'm a healer, we're never really a healer. We're not the ones who heal. It's the people who have to be open to the healing. We're just a conduit.
Yeah. And I even struggle with saying that people need to be open, because it's all about perception. I mean, somebody can say they're not open to it, and yet then they have a great experience, and then the next moment they are open to it. I think more is that after somebody has an experience, they have to then accept the experience for what it was.
True. So yeah,
if somebody says, I can't walk up and down the stairs, that is real to them.
Yeah.
Right? As soon as I say, okay, try walking up and down the stairs, once they do it and they sit back down, they then have to then choose that they're going to continue to be somebody that can walk up and down the stairs, or go back to being somebody that doesn't walk up and down the stairs. 80% of the time, that experience is great enough that they won't sit back down.
What is it, do you think, Mikeal, that goes through their mind when they sit back down though?
Everything that has happened up to that point, and their perception of everything that is going to happen after that point. It is sometimes hard to accept a new reality when it is in such contrast to the last one.
Do you think it's because people like to play the victim?
Maybe they don't like to play the victim, but if you have played the victim for so long, it's probably doing something for you.
Right.
Right. But also, our perception of reality is based on time. But time isn't necessarily real. Time is just like a filing system.
Yeah.
Right. So if we have trouble grasping everything at once, so we use time as a way to remember things. But this moment here and this moment here are separated by all possibilities. Or in between these two moments is when all the magic happens, or where miracles happen, right? So if when you're going from this moment to this moment, the more you get into this, the greater this moment can be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like the more we get, some people only wobble like this. And so each moment tends to be the same as the last moment, right? The more you go like this, the more you're letting go of. If you can get all the way, if you want to use like phase angle, right? Like if this is 90 degrees and this is 90 degrees of that 90 degrees, this is letting everything go. And then the next moment can be whatever you choose it to be.
Yeah. Well, it's an incredible, incredible story. Hi, I just want to say hello to some people, Mikeal.
Yeah.
You probably can't see, I don't know. Lisa Corn Collette has joined. Anderson Callie. Taz says hi, Allie and Mikeal. Lisa Savaro says, playing the victim for me has just been happening for so many years. It feels normal. So trying to change feels scary.
Yeah. Well, it is normal. And that's what I was saying. Like, if this moment is all that you know, it does feel normal. But the only way to get to this moment and have it any different than the last moment is to let everything go.
Yeah.
Like this moment, I had torn labrums in my hips. This moment, I didn't. So our perception is that it's a process. Like we have to go through a healing like journey or experience or whatever, that it takes time. Like if this is a broken bone here, this next moment, this can be a not broken bone. But you have to let go of everything associated with broken bones. Right? But I've had people that have had broken bones here and then have been running around playing soccer here.
It's hard for some people to get the concept of. I know that. Even for me as a healer myself, it can be quite hard to not accept it, but to understand it completely. Not that we have to understand it. We don't have to understand it. But for other people listening, I think that's part of the reason for the ongoing work, aside from helping people, is so that people can see the possibilities and see it working. And that's why Mikeal asked me if we could do what we used to do in our olden days, myself and Mikeal, hosting like sort of like a healing show, which is what we're going to do straight after this chat that we're having, this intriguing chat. So make sure that you write it in the comments if you're going to be joining us, and we're going to put in the Zoom link into the comments just about when we're finished. And I might just have a quick bathroom break before we begin that. But
well, and I should probably add that all my experiences, like we talked about earlier, put me in a position to be able to let everything go, right? I didn't necessarily have a ton of, let's say, built-in beliefs around possibility that limited that experience. Right? Let's say had my mom been a Reiki master, right? My perception would have been based off of 30 or 60 minutes of energy in order to have a greater experience. Mm-hmm. Right? There was nothing holding me to time and what was possible.
Yeah.
Right? So like now, to me, it doesn't necessarily make sense that it would take 60 minutes or 6 months or 2 years, right? Because my experience was so quick that that's what I think that other people should be able to experience.
Yes, but can I ask you, and I think you'll answer me with what I think you're going to answer me. For some people, it takes that a little bit longer, doesn't it? Because they need to build that sort of belief in it.
Well, there's always a transition between believing and knowing.
Yeah.
But the heart already knows everything. Mm-hmm. So the transition isn't as much building belief as it is getting out of your head and into your heart in order to have a greater experience. But lessons are already learned as soon as you get out of your head and into your heart. Like some people will continue to do something thinking they need to learn the lesson, when as soon as they have a greater experience, the lesson is learned.
Can you give us an example of that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of one. Well, let's say that I'm trying to think of a good example. All right, so the person that, let's say, can't walk up and down the stairs, they've been living as if they can't walk up and down the stairs. And the reasons are based off of everything that has happened. So let's say their doctor said that they have arthritis, or that they have a bone spur, or that they have weak glutes, or that their quad's weak, or whatever it is that's preventing them from getting up, right? The lesson happened as soon as they were told what that was. They just continue to play that lesson over and over again as if it's real.
Okay.
The moment they walk up and down the stairs, they've learned the lesson, right? But they have to choose whether they want to move forward in the new experience or if they want to go back to the old one.
Right.
Right. So you said Colette's on here?
Who? Colette?
Colette? Did you say Colette was on here? Oh, I
No,
thought you said hi, Colette. Anyway, so Colette,
no.
she couldn't eat food.
Okay.
Right? For 50 some years, her stomach kept getting worse and worse and worse. She went to all the doctors, right? Had all the tests, but she was still limited to like 6 foods that she could eat. Okay. I told her to relax. I focused on her. Okay. In between those 2 moments, she could eat whatever she wanted. But she didn't know that yet.
Right.
Right. So what I said to her was, okay, go eat something that you haven't been able to eat in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She went and ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and realized that her stomach was better.
Okay.
Right? But her stomach was better before she ate the sandwich. Right? Or her stomach was always better. I just showed her that it was better.
Okay.
And then 10 pounds later, she's eating whatever she wants.
10 pounds later?
Well, yeah, because she hadn't been able to eat anything for so long that she enjoyed eating again.
Okay.
Or enjoyed eating for the first time.
Right.
But she also had enough of a buffer that if she got a little bit of a stomach ache, it didn't have anything to do with the 50 whatever years that she couldn't eat anything.
What did it have to do with?
Maybe she ate too much in that moment.
Okay, I get you. Yeah.
Right? Just like if my back was bad for 3 years.
Yeah.
And then the next moment it's better. If my back is a little bit sore, I get to choose if it's because I'm doing squats with 500 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's because my back was bad for 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Right? So that's not to say that my knee doesn't hurt when I run sometimes.
Sure.
Right? It just means that I get to choose whether it's because I'm running right now or if it's because I've had 7 right knee surgeries and the doctor told me not to run.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? But sometimes we go back to what has happened in the moment because we think we know.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it makes sense to us that, oh, yeah, you shouldn't run because you've had 7 knee surgeries.
Yeah.
Right? But I've also had a great enough experience to know that regardless of what I've had, I can have a greater experience. So now I'm able to shake it off and go, hey, let it go.
Yeah.
Don't go back there anymore. But I've experienced more with my knee, let's say, than I did with my back because I blamed my knee for everything for so long. Right?
Yeah.
Like my addiction, I blamed on my knee. I didn't blame my addiction on a poor choice. I blamed it on a knee injury.
Yeah.
Right? So some things are harder to let go than others.
For sure. For sure. But you help people to do that now, and you've been helping people to do that for a number of years, right?
Yeah.
And you also have a private group where you teach people how to do exactly what you do.
Yeah.
So can I just read some of these comments here? Because I know you can't, well, I don't think you can see them, can you?
I don't have them pulled up. I could pull them up, but I don't have them pulled up.
Christine is laughing at something. I'm not sure what she's laughing at. Christine Bliss. Helen James said going to try and Zoom. In the past, it wouldn't go through. I'm away out in the country. Sue wants to join for Zoom. And Christine Bliss says the mind is cray cray. There was a comment, because I didn't read it in time, it's moved down, but I know it was from Dean Olson, and he's also experienced addiction in the past and understands being an empath only too well.
Yeah. I was going to try and pull up, hold on, let me see if I can pull up the comments so I can see them.
Yeah, I can only see a certain amount at a time. Once they move, it seems to kind of lose them. Christine said, Michael trying to think of an example was what I was laughing at. See, I can't even see Michael's face properly at the moment because it's such a delay.
Yeah, I can see the comments now. Well, Christine is always Christine's always laughing at something.
She is. Okay. Christine's fun.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you would like to say to people here about your experience, about what you're going to do moving forward, about how you can help people, your website, where people can contact you? And of course, we are going to be opening up this Zoom link in just a few minutes so that people can come on live with myself and Michael and experience just exactly what it is Michael does.
Yeah. Well, I'll add this. So even though I had that great experience, right? The next moment I still had to accept that experience as real.
Yeah.
Right. So there were still parts of me or things about me that wanted to question that experience. Right. Mm-hmm. So even though I knew healing was instant in that moment, right, I still tried to seek validation for my experience. Right? Because it was hard to grasp that it had actually happened. So I spent a year and immersed myself, let's say, in the energy healing community, trying to figure out an experience that I'd already had.
Yeah.
Right. So there was a time in there that I thought I had to do what everybody else was doing. Right. So, the first real healing experience, let's say, that I had with somebody, it was with a woman that couldn't lift her arms above, like right here. Right.
Yeah.
And I went backwards in time and tried to clear up all of this stuff because my perception was all of this stuff was what was keeping her arms from moving.
Okay.
Right. 15 minutes later, she's running her fingers through her hair, having a greater experience. Right. But
are you sure she wasn't just flirting with you, Michael?
She probably was. She probably was. But in those 15 minutes was building an experience that was great enough that she could let all those things go.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily that I was pointing out what happened to her when she was 5. What I was doing was trying to build enough of an experience in the moment that her arms could work again.
Yeah.
Right. So I learned actually fairly quickly that all of that stuff didn't necessarily matter. Her arms could have worked 2 seconds later had I been in a place to be an example of what's possible.
Mm-hmm.
So now, let's say when I'm focusing on somebody, I'm not necessarily focusing on that person or anything specific about that person, right? I'm not even necessarily trying to figure out anything that's wrong with anybody, because really it has nothing to do with what I think is wrong.
Yeah.
Right? All I'm doing is in that moment, allowing the experience to be great enough that they let go of everything they think is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Colette and the sandwich and not being able to eat, right? She spent 50 some years trying to figure out everything that was wrong.
Yeah, as you do.
Right? In that moment, I just held the experience that was great enough that it no longer mattered what was wrong.
Sure.
And then as soon as she started eating a sandwich, it no longer even mattered what was wrong. Mm-hmm. Because that's no longer real.
Yeah.
Right? Just like I used to think I had to use my empathic ability to figure out everything that was going on with somebody. Right? But I learned pretty quickly that me participating that way only put me in a position to take on their stuff. Mm-hmm, so sure. I had another woman who had a sty in her eye. Right? And I was doing like this with my hand and I was trying to get it out and I was going like this, right? I wanted it out of her eye so bad that the next moment I had it in my eye.
Yeah, that's what happens. Right? Yeah.
And it took me a lot longer to get it out of my eye than it did out of her eye because it is a lot more difficult to heal ourselves by ourselves.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So I learned in that 1 year a lot of things really quickly so that I no longer put the sty in my eye.
Yeah.
Right? Like I already know what back pain feels like. I don't need to experience it again.
Me too.
Right? I already know what a sucky life feels like because I've already experienced it. I don't need to participate that way anymore. I just need to be an example of what's possible.
Yeah. And like we always used to say when we worked together before, Michael, in the realm of all possibilities, anything and everything is possible.
Yeah. And we just get to choose what we want to hold on to.
Yeah.
Right? Because in between here and here, like if this person has a pain level of 10, this person gets to choose if they accept 10. But right here, 0 exists, 1 exists, 2 exists, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So when it comes back to this next moment, how much of that do they want to hold on to? And how much do they want to let go of?
Yeah.
I'm just in between these moments, encouraging them to hold on to 0.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody wants to hold on to 0. You know, everybody wants to get there.
Yes.
So I would encourage, if anybody needs some healing, to either come on with myself and Michael after this chat and come onto the Zoom. We're inviting anybody on. It's for free for approximately an hour. Christine Bliss, of course, cracked a joke that if it turns into an 8-hour marathon session, like in our past, she was going to be hopping off. Don't blame you, Christine. I might be hopping off at that stage too. Tricia has a question for you, Michael.
I saw the question. I was reading it. Hold on.
Okay, so do you want to answer that there?
I will. Let me see here. Well, you're not necessarily doing anything wrong, right? So, but Trisha's experience is so great that it's hard for her to grasp that her experience could be any different than what it is.
Right.
Right. And part of it is her perception is that she can only help others because her experience was so great. Right. But she could let go of all of it in order to have a greater experience. It is just a lot for her to grasp.
So it's just going to take time for her?
Either time or an experience that is great enough that it overcomes all of her past experiences.
Right.
Right.
So seeing somebody else heal in front of her eyes, possibly.
Yes, could be enough.
Yeah.
Yes. Or if we had 25 people that were paralyzed one moment and the next moment they weren't, we could hold that experience right here. And then in that moment, she would get to choose. Do I go back to this or do I be what they're being?
Yeah.
Right. We just don't have a ton of experiences like that yet for her to tap into.
Sure. Sorry,
Okay.
with the delay, I'm just sort of waiting.
Yeah, I was reading too.
With the delay, I'm waiting for to make sure you finish speaking before I speak again. Lisa Savaro said that I would love to join Zoom. This will be my first. I'm going to put the link up shortly, guys. Jennifer Este says, if 8, I presume she's cracking a joke there alongside Christine Bliss. I can't see anything else there. But Mikeal, are you happy if I put the link up now, we stop streaming to Facebook, and you and I talk for 1 minute, then I'm going to take a toilet break before I start accepting people into the Zoom. So if people understand, when I put the Zoom link up, just give me a couple of minutes. I've drunk 3 liters of water today, so I need to have a very quick bathroom break before I start accepting people in. I'm not sure, and we'll be waiting there for you, and you're very welcome to join us, Mikeal.
So are you going to go back? Are you going to stream it back to Facebook after the break?
Am I going to stream it back? I wasn't planning on. Do you want me to?
I would.
Sure. Okay. Well, what we'll do for now, though, is just stop streaming it for a few moments, if that's okay.
Okay. Okay.
Unless you've got anything else that you just want to finally add. I want you to add your website where people can find you and all of that, just for the people who can't or aren't able to come on Zoom, Mikeal.
Well, people can message me on Facebook, and I respond to all my messages on Facebook.
Yeah. Jennifer says, no, was trying to say I may have sent an angry emotion by accident. No, you didn't. Dominique is here. She's coming as well. Charlene's in the house. Hi, Charlene. She's going to come with us as well.
Right.
So, guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this chat with Mikeal. It's an incredible, incredible story. I'm sure that you'll agree. It won't be the last you'll see of Mikeal, because this show actually was a show Mikeal and myself had discussed doing originally, which is why he's one of my only friends who I've brought back onto the show early, just because I'm bringing fresh new people in. But with Mikeal, we had talked about doing a show together, so this is why I'm bringing Mikeal on in so early, and because his story is so incredible. So I hope that you'll be able to join us on Zoom, and you might see him again later on in the show further down the line when I've got some blank spots, if Michael's willing to come on.
All right, cool. So stop streaming from Facebook, but we'll stream back to Facebook once we start doing the healing, so people can see that part of it, right?
Sure.
Okay.
So just give us a couple of minutes. I hope I copied the link okay. I think I did. Hold on, I'm just going to post it there. So that is the link for the Facebook, guys. You can see it there in the comments that I've just posted. If you want to click on that and request to join, we'll be with you shortly. Just give me a couple of minutes. And Mikeal, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And we will see you back here in a little while, people. And for everybody joining the Zoom, we will see you in a couple of minutes. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye for now.